people feel nervous to go against the LGBT because it might, because of the backlash that they might face. But then it's the people that are completely against it where, like you said, it just creates more hatred towards the community because this stuff is ridiculous when it comes to neopronouns, xenopronouns, and like that.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Damage Control Podcast. I'm Brad Polumbo, and we are here to reclaim the debate over LGBT issues from the insane extremists on both sides who seem to have taken it over. My guest today is AJ Sanchez, a gay TikToker who's increasingly seeming based and red-pilled. We break down his political evolution, why he dipped his toe into the fray, and so much more. And as always, I round out the show by reacting to some insane LGBT TikToks. If you're new here and watching us on YouTube, please do consider subscribing. We just recently crossed 100,000 subscribers. What a huge landmark. It came way quicker than I expected, and thank you so much to all of you who made it possible. All right, now let's dive into the podcast. AJ, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Of course, Brad. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I reached out to you a while ago. I'm so glad we're finally doing this because I've been following you on TikTok for probably over a year, and I've been seeing you become slightly more based and slightly more red-pilled, right? So when I first followed you, you did completely non-political, like lifestyle commentary, sassy, funny content. And slowly but surely, you dipped your toes into the political quagmire. So we're going to get into it today. But first, how long have you been doing TikTok or social media? Like, when did you first get into it?
So, I started social media, I would say back in middle school, high school. I started posting on YouTube, and then I got into Instagram. And then when it came to TikTok, I started TikTok back in January 2023. So I think I just hit my my 1 year.
Oh wow! And you're already at what, 300,000 followers?
We're coming up on it. So yeah, I'm really
you've been popping off.
Mm-hmm.
So when you first started, what kind of content were you posting? I vaguely remember, but just like it wasn't political at all, right?
Not at all. I would do like get readies with me, kind of day in my life kind of stuff. I would do trending audio. And it was just, like you said, very vague. It was all over the place. No really rhyme or rhythm to it, but just stuff that I felt like posting. But yeah, it was just basically mainly get ready with me. Like I would do chit chat, get ready with me and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're doing your makeup. I know. You're going to have to teach me. All I do is a little bit of concealer under my eyes for those bags. And then if I have a pimple or something, I'll do a little concealer. For a while, I was doing pressed powder, but it didn't quite match my skin tone quite right. So I'm a complete noob. You're going to have to help me out another time. Makeover. Teach me how to do it. Because you go all out with it. So
I got bright and early this morning. I woke up for you, Brad. I was like,
oh, wow. Audience, be grateful. We're recording at 10 a.m. So AJ must have he got up early to do his makeup. Wow. I'm honestly honored. But so let's talk about your first viral TikTok, which I actually played on this podcast when it went viral the first time here. Let's play it so people can, they might recognize this one.
Fellow LGBTQIA plus, baby, y'all are doing too much. And yes, I'm going to be the one to say it, because if a straight person says it, y'all going to say they're homophobic, this, that, and the third, and it's like, no, boo, you're just doing the most, and it's really not cute. Because can someone explain to me why I'm seeing all these pride videos, people in the streets acting like they ain't got no training, but see Bucci, Chi-Chi's all out on display for everybody to see, middle New York, broad daylight, minors present. Like, since when is that okay, sis? Because it's not. And bitch, don't get it twisted. On a scale of 1 to classy, I'm not giving royal family by any means. Like, I love to turn up, shake some ass, and have a good time, but bitch, time and place. And that was not it. Y'all, when I tell you I saw this chick, practically nothing on top of a water fountain, water spraying all up in her cookies, nookies, and crannies. I'm just wondering what type of antibiotic that doctor's gonna prescribe for all that. People hanging from street lights, hooking up on the side of the road. What in the land before time, Neanderthal behavior? Raggedy is the word for it. They already don't us like that, and this is how you want them to perceive us. Pride is an event based around acceptance and equality, not an excuse for y'all to act a fucking fool. Alright, y'all. As long as you guys know that does not represent the entire LGBTQIA plus community. Even I'm like, what the do better.
So so many things.
Okay.
One, the cookies, nookies, and crannies sends me every time. The antibiotics sends me every time.
And I think that's why that video I mean, aside from the context of the video, it was the one-liners that people, they were like, "Oh my God, what is this?" Some of the people, they were like, "I need a translator to understand what he's saying." I don't know. I don't know where it came from, but
Was it off the cuff or was it scripted?
no, also I was that day. I didn't want to film that night. I was like, I don't care to film, but let's just do my makeup. And it was on my mind. I was like, it was in June during Pride Month, and I saw everything happening when it came to indecent exposure and, all that stuff. So like, let's just talk about it. And I vented, I rambled on, and yeah, off the cuff. So
And when you posted that, did you have any idea it was going to blow up, or were you surprised?
not at all. Not at all. I'd never had I guess, viral video like that ever before. I'd had videos that, I think my biggest, our highest viewed video was maybe like 100,000 views on TikTok, which is still a decent amount. But I posted it, and that night, like, I'd never experienced engagement like that before when it came to comments, likes, and just, so it was, no, I never experienced it. So
I think a lot of people found it really relatable. Like I know I did because, I'm part of the gay community. I'm pro-gay. I'm also not socially conservative. I'm socially moderate. I'm not a prude, but
right.
like there has to be a limit. And some of this stuff really is inappropriate and harmful to the community, like you said. So I've spoken out against it as well. But I think it was also really interesting for people to see, a gay man doing his makeup, calling it out, right? This isn't some straight white male. This isn't some old boomer. It's like kind of from within the community, like, y'all need to cut it out. And so I think that that's why it resonated with so many people. But I think it also pissed a lot of people off. What was the backlash like?
Okay, so the biggest backlash that I'd received was me basically, a lot of people assume that I was younger than I am because I'm 27, and they were like, this little 19-year-old doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know his history or where the gay community originated and how they were liberated and things. And I do know my history, or my herstory as they refer to it. So the biggest backlash was basically, get some more experience in life, when in reality, I've been to Pride. I've experienced it firsthand, not just through videos that I've seen online. So it's speaking from experience, and I don't believe that it represents a community in a positive light. And I figured if we just continue to let it spiral out of control, they're going to portray us in this negative light, and I don't want to sit back and allow that to happen anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I actually think they don't even fully understand the history because, for example, the biggest gay rights victory of my lifetime is the fight for gay marriage equality. But that fight it wasn't made by twerking in front of children's faces. It was made by bourgeoisie appeals to normalcy and family. Like, we want to be included. We want to fit in society. We want to have families. We want to get married. We're normal just like you. It was not won by drag queens waving dildos in children's faces or whatever the insane stuff we're seeing at some of these Pride events. And look, I know not all Pride events are like that. I don't go to them. Partly, I don't think I'd be welcome at any of them, but
I don't know I'm there, but anymore.
but I know they're not all like that. But when we do that, or that when the community does that, it's going to go viral, and the people that are against us will use it and try to say we all support it. And when they all stay silent, they're playing into that.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
So I think you were accused of being a homophobe, a pick-me, anything else. Did anyone have any actual arguments about why it's okay to expose kids to nudity?
I guess sexual liberation, that's where it originated. But like you said, we're not and I had responded to a comment where I was called, homophobic. I was internalizing homophobia, and I was I'm not internalizing homophobia. I'm not trying to be a pick-me. But it's like I said, somebody needs to stand up against it, and we're not back when we were an oppressed people. Like I said in one of my reaction videos, I don't feel like I'm gonna walk into a gay bar, go to Pride, and feel like I'm gonna be rioted by police and sent to prison just for expressing myself. So there's no need to go to that level of aggression when it comes to riots, indecent exposure, making the scene. And I feel like that's where the disconnect is, and I try to bridge that gap with a lot of my content. There needs to be, I don't want to say the word mediator, moderator, or whatever, but to let people know that this does not represent the entire LGBTQ community. It's select individuals, and as you said, they're the ones that are highlighted and put under a microscope, used against us, saying that this is what we represent, when in reality it's not.
Yeah, one of the interesting things you said was somebody accused you of farming support from MAGA from that video. And this was interesting because, you know, a lot of people were supporting you that weren't MAGA, but some were. And you talked about how you had MAGA. And look, people know if they're on my channel, I don't support Trump. I never have. But I have always found that a good chunk of Trump supporters are fine with gay people, are not homophobic. And so it was interesting to me to hear you explain why you weren't horrified to have anyone who's MAGA join your following.
Definitely. I mean, if you support me and I support you, we respect one another. Your political affiliation doesn't really determine whether I view you as somebody I would get along with. You know, if you come to me and say, I don't support your lifestyle, I don't like the way that you do this, that, and the third, and we don't click on that basis, then so be it. But what I have learned and what I have learned throughout my experience and my growth on TikTok and on social media is that MAGA supporters are not the devil. Like, they're not out. They're not these horrible people who hate the gay community. They're simply people who have some type of common sense about them, for the most part. I'm not, it's nuanced, give or take, but they want what's best for the country. They want what's best for, and like I said, this is a personal experience and from what I've recognized. But yeah, long story short, I'm not going to judge you based off your political affiliation.
So this video, this viral pride video, was kind of like your first foray into political waters. And because it was so successful, you've kept on going. And now you have a YouTube channel that I'll link and people should check out, a Rumble channel I'll link that people should check out. You're making more TikTok content, pushing back on the insane elements of the LGBT community, including one of my personal pet peeves, which is, of course, neopronouns, which is inanimate objects that people decide are their pronouns. Let's listen to our favorite TikToker, Jeffrey Marsh, explain what neopronouns are.
Pronouns, xenopronouns, neopronouns. What's happening here? What is this? This video has been requested a bajillion times, which tells me that allies are deeply interested in affirming who we are and understanding our community better. So if that's you, if you're an ally watching this video, or an ally sent it to you and you're an ally, if your ally is doing ally work and wanting to understand, thank you. You're doing the extra credit, and we appreciate it. If you are trans yourself or non-binary and want a deeper understanding about some words that may affirm you, keep listening, keep watching. Pronoun is a part of speech. He and she are the usual pronouns that everyone grows up with and thinking
so far, so good.
Referring to one person.
Right track.
But of course, they refers to one person as well. Someone left their umbrella. They as one person. But there's more to this story than just he, she, or they. I'm non-binary and my pronouns are they, them. So if you were going to talk about me, you would say, Jeffrey is an amazing author. They are really attractive.
And very humble.
They being used in place of he or she to refer to one person, in this case, me. Because I'm non-binary. Neopronouns, literally new pronouns, refers to the creation of a new word, a neo word, to go in that slot. So a common one is Z. If my pronoun was Z, you would say Jeffrey is a brilliant thinker.
Again, the humility.
Z is one of the most attractive people I've ever seen. You'd say a lot of things, I'm sure. So that is the creation of a brand new word to put in the slot where he, she, or they would go. Xenopronouns, perhaps one of the most beautiful concepts, one of the most poetic ways to approach this subject. Xenopronouns refers to any pronoun a person has that is unspeakable, that is unworkable in the language of a person. So an example would be a xenopronoun would be a word. I can't even say it, right? Because that's the point.
All right, we'll stop there.
Thank my God.
Tap out.
Thank
Tap
you.
out.
Like you're just torturing me first thing in the morning. I'm like, I'm gonna have a
So,
oh,
xenopronoun being a word you can't pronounce, even though the purpose of a pronoun is as a word you can use in a sentence to refer to someone by shorthand. Make it make sense. I cannot.
it doesn't. Anything after him inviting children to join him on a private site, nothing after that point in time, his content, none of it makes sense to me. I mean, let's be honest. The fact that people like you and I, when we speak facts on the internet and we get canceled, our stuff gets taken down, it gets banned, whatever. But this person can come on here and spew all this BS. It doesn't make sense to me.
No, and I do find it ridiculous as well when they start listing things as pronouns that are by definition not pronouns. Like a pronoun is a different thing than a noun. This is like basic grammar. They're destroying our language. So if they want elf/elves to be pronouns, like, no, babe, that's a noun. You literally, you're breaking our language. You're making things up. This isn't how words work.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I just wonder what you think about this. Like, unfortunately, I think the truth is people are kind of tribal thinkers, and what they have an attitude towards the entire LGBT. Either they support or they don't support. I would like people to have nuance and say, I'm fine with gay rights, I'm fine with trans adults, but I don't support minors transitioning, I don't support trans women and women's sports. I would love more people to have nuance. But the reality of the world is a lot of people are black and white thinkers. And when you attach this kind of thing, inanimate objects as pronouns, unspeakable words as pronouns, all of this just made up nonsense, when you attach it to our community and say that people have to accept it or they're anti-LGBT, I think a lot of people are honestly going to choose the anti-LGBT.
No, absolutely. It's a huge divide, and it creates a bigger divide because it's almost people feel nervous to go against the LGBT because it might, because of the backlash that they might face. But then it's the people that are completely against it where, like you said, it just creates more hatred towards the community because the stuff is ridiculous when it comes to neopronouns, xenopronouns, and shit like that.
I guess what would you say to someone, though, who says, what's the harm? It's just a word. Why not make them feel better?
The harm to me is what was once a movement for acceptance, and kind of like what we touched on at the beginning of this episode of this podcast, was we originally were fighting for equality and wanting to fit in with society. And I feel like when it comes to the new pronoun police, the neopronouns, it's become a movement of narcissism. Like, you're going to refer to me as this, otherwise I'm going to film you. I'm going to post you online. I'm going to have your business canceled. I'm coming for everything that you own because you didn't refer to me as a buns, or whatever pronouns that they come up with on a day-to-day basis. And to kind of piggyback off of that, a lot of these people with the neopronouns attach themselves to the trans community, and they say, "Oh, I'm trans because I'm non-binary, or I don't identify with the gender that I was born as." You're not trans. You're not trans. Trans, there's a medical definition for that. And if you suffer from gender dysphoria and you feel as though you want to transition into the opposite sex, or gender, then you know what? That there's a medical basis for that. But to sit here and say that you have these xenopronouns or neopronouns and then say, "Oh, I'm trans," you're not. And you're disregarding the trans community who actually go through that process. And so it's just messy. And
yeah, I think you touched on something else there. I completely agree with you about the trans part. They're hijacking a legitimate medical diagnosis that some adults experience with their nonsense that has nothing to do with it. But also, they are trying to destroy things, not gain equality and equal access to them. So it's like, imagine if instead of fighting for gay marriage, they fought for the abolition of marriage. Right? They fought to destroy marriage, to redefine it, to erase the words husband and wife because they're heteronormative, right? And instead, we all need to use they, them for everyone. And we need to have new pronouns and totally rewrite our language. It's like, instead of about gaining equal access to society and assimilation, it's become a form of cultural anarchism where they want to tear everything down as we know it. And I don't think that's a realistic or pragmatic or well thought out approach to these issues. The other issue with it is what I think strikes most people as reality denial, blatant gaslighting. So when they say there's no differences between males and females in sports, like we all know that's not true. And you've reacted to this extensively. When they claim things like trans women who are born biologically male and then transition to live as women and take estrogen or whatever, have periods. This is something that people actually say on the internet. Let's roll a TikTok I've seen you react to so our audience can hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Lord.
But I'm here to tell you the real facts. Trans women experience menstrual cycles. Not all of us. Oh no, not all of us. No. Some of us are lucky and don't have to go through it. And then some of us, like myself, go through it every month. Every month. The cramps, the bloating, the fatigue, the nausea, all of it. The only thing I don't get is a menstrual cycle. I don't bleed. That's the only difference. And if that is what makes a period for you, I am so sorry for you, because now you're also invalidating cis women. You know, cis women who don't have menstrual periods, because that's real. But it's okay.
Then they don't have periods.
You can keep invalidating people to make yourself feel more important. But I'm not going to sit here and allow you to invalidate my community or myself, because my experience is very real. My period I experience every month is very real.
So the thing is, it isn't though, babe. It's not.
No, and I appreciate you saying what you said midway through, because about how you said that it's not a period, because I mean, I'm not going to share too much information, but a little backstory. My mom, she got a hysterectomy or whatever. And she even says she is born, obviously, biologically a woman, but she says, oh my God, the greatest thing is I don't experience a period anymore. Imagine that, because she doesn't, she's not bleeding. She's not shedding her uterine, the whole process. So I appreciate you saying that, because I never thought about it that way, where she has said that. She's like, I'm so grateful I don't experience a period anymore, even though she is biologically a cis woman, which I hate the word cis, not hate it, but definitely don't use the word cis.
Yeah, no, I don't really use it unless I'm kind of reading somebody talking about it or something. But yeah, I guess what I make of this is that I'm willing to believe that this person has hormonal fluctuations once a month due to taking estrogen. That doesn't strike me as far-fetched or unrealistic whatsoever. But to call them a period isn't true. It doesn't matter that it's your truth or your experience. It's not the truth. It's not reality. Because a period is the shedding of the uterine lining. Like, there is a medical, scientific definition for this. And I don't understand why you can't have your own thing. Like, discuss your own struggle. Like, if you have cramps, if you have hormonal fluctuations, that's fine. But it's this need to appropriate and redefine existing things in inaccurate ways that deny reality that I think rubs a lot of people the wrong way. Like, I'm not a woman, so it's not like this is eating at the heart of my soul, right? But I can imagine myself being a woman and looking at this and getting pissed off.
Absolutely. And how they say that it invalidates, the trans experience. How about the woman's experience of actually going through this biological anatomic process once a month? And a lot of people that have commented under my post say, oh, what are endometriosis? I have cysts, or I had to have my parts removed because it was so excruciating. I went through so much, troubles with my period. And it's like, okay, so it's all about me, narcissism. You're invalidating the trans experience. But one thing I will always defend is women and children. And I feel as though saying that you experience a period and you're trying to compare it to what a woman goes through, it completely invalidates cis women.
It does. And it just rubs people the wrong way. And it's, again, anti-reality. It's reality denial. And people don't like that. One thing I did want to get your thoughts on, because I've seen you have kind of nuanced takes on it, and I've kind of taken a nuanced position on it as well, is this whole panic over drag, right? So I'm not personally somebody who gets a kick out of drag. It's just kind of never really been my thing. I've been to a couple drag shows. They don't horrify me, but they also don't really do anything for me. I'm like, okay, whatever, not my thing. I don't really think drag shows are almost ever appropriate for kids, especially like, I don't know. I'm sure there are some out there that somehow manage to be fully clothed and fully appropriate for kids, but the vast majority of drag shows are pretty sexual and involve like sexual dancing and other things. So I really think it should be an adults only thing. That said, I do think we're living through something of a panic, a moral panic over drag queens reading books to kids or whatever, which is not something I'd sign my kid up for, but sometimes they act like it's the sky is falling, like they're all these drag queens are out to molest children, to convince them to be trans. Like, I really do see that as overstated and exaggerated and kind of a moral panic, even if obviously I think there are legitimate concerns to be had about some of this stuff. What's your take on all of that?
My thing is, so when it comes to drag queens, and I've said this before in my videos, I think there's a lot more detrimental things to a child's development than seeing a big wig, extravagant makeup, and, putting on a number. That being said, like you said, a lot of drag shows, and I used to work at Palace in South Beach in Miami, so they had the chi-chis out, the booty out, like it was a whole show, and I loved it. I lived for it, right? But is that a place for children? In my opinion, no. I don't think a child should be exposed to that. That being said, I feel as though drag queens, they get a lot of backlash when it comes to children attending shows, when really they have no control over that. Ultimately, it's up to the parent whether they decide, oh, I'm taking my kid to this drag show to see this performance and be exposed to that. The issue that I have with it is when drag queens make an effort to be in the presence of children. For example, reading to children. I respect the art. I respect what you do, but is it a place where you need to be reading to children where they might not fully understand a man with a breastplate and makeup? And again, it's completely up to the parents. But there is such a stress on drag queens being coming after your kids and, like you said, being P3 DOs and stuff like that. But those type of people don't discriminate based off of their sexual orientation or gender identity. There are people who I know where this has happened within the family tree. Their uncle did something that was, I don't want to get into detail just because I don't want to touch on that too much in the podcast because I don't know what's appropriate or not. But I think you guys can get a gist of what I'm saying. It doesn't discriminate based on sexual orientation when it comes to sexual assault or things of that nature.
Yeah, it often comes from people they know, not random drag queens. It often comes from trusted figures in the church or other things. So it's, I just don't think that, obviously there's going to be somewhere, like any group of people who do have nefarious intentions, but I think people don't need to be afraid of drag queens coming for their kids. No one's going to force you to take your kid to a drag queen event anytime soon. And I don't really I don't think parents should be doing it, but if they want to, I don't know. It's a free country. If they're just reading books, if it's a sexual performance, I can get behind the idea of limiting it to adults only through regulations or whatever. But if they're just reading books, to me, it's a free country. I wouldn't take my kid to it, but that's their right. But I know some of my audience will disagree with this. They get very worked up over this issue, and that's okay. Don't have to agree 100% of everything all the time. But I guess maybe to round us out, AJ, what's the message that you have for people, and what are you hoping to accomplish with your content creation going forward? Like, why are you in this all, right? To make a difference about what? To speak on what? Or like, what are you trying to add to the conversation?
Damn, we're getting deep today, Brad. So I guess the biggest thing, kind of what I touched on, is be the middleman. To say, I know the stuff that happens that is like we touched on with trans periods and things of that nature, and the neopronoun, that is not a representation of the entire community. And I think that a lot of people, me, I come on here, I live authentically myself, obviously, like I got the face, I do the outfits and everything, but people love that because they know that I'm authentic, but yet I still am in touch with reality. And, I can be myself, but I'm not going to discredit anybody else in the process of doing so. So I guess the biggest thing for me in my content is trying to, like I said, just bridge the gap between two communities, and realize that we probably have more in common than you think. And a lot of these people that get put on this pedestal, like, are showcased all over social media, it's a small minority within our community. And I hope that people don't judge the entire community based, off of a few people's actions.
Absolutely. And if people want to keep up with your work, they can go subscribe to you on TikTok, on YouTube, or on Rumble. All the links will be in the description below. But AJ, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, and we'll have to have you back sometime.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey guys, we just wrapped recording on another episode of the Based Politics podcast, my political podcast that I co-host with Hannah Cox.
That's right. This week, we're talking about America's speech code problem getting even worse. TikTok is setting Biden's climate policy, and is $74,000 middle class?
We dive into all this and more, so just go to the link in the description to watch us on YouTube, or check out the Based Politics podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, everybody, it's time for everyone's favorite part of the podcast, where I subject myself to torture for your entertainment, because some of you are a little sick and like to watch me suffer, and I react to insane LGBT TikToks from the alphabet people from the perspective of a gay guy who hasn't yet lost his mind. Up first, did you know if you're white and gay, or queer, whatever that means these days, you are the problem?
This might be a controversial take, but I'm seeing a lot of queer white people posting shit like posting themselves being really happy and doing some random shit and being like, yeah, our joy is resistance. And like, in my opinion, white people's joy is not resistance. Like, queer or not, your joy is not resistance. Matter of fact, your joy is what got us here in the first place. Like, your joy is why we're having to resist. And like, y'all putting yourselves and finding yourselves and like your own joy in front of everybody else is what got us here. Like, literally, I'm seeing so many white people right now going on like organizer retreats and posting about their joy and how awesome it was. Honestly, I want to see more of y'all like sitting your ass at home and giving your money to black and brown people. So
all right, guys, well, I guess I know that I'm not allowed to post myself being happy or doing positive things online because I am the problem. I actually do not identify with the label queer whatsoever, and neither do a lot of people who are gay. So some do, and that's fine, but a lot of us don't really like to be called that. But that is the woke speak nowadays, I guess. I find this video interesting for a couple reasons. One, that the idea, I do agree with this person, that white people's joy is not, in fact, resistance. To what exactly? Don't ask. Just resistance. But neither is anyone else's. And it's actually perfectly fine for people, gay or straight or whatever, to post themselves being happy online. Seriously, I would love for this individual to explain one way, one single specific way, that her life has been harmed or made worse by white queer people's joy. I'll wait. I do always find it funny with people like this, how obviously, in the grand scheme of things, privileged they are, yet how obsessed they are with somehow feeling oppressed. This woman is a young adult who is healthy, who seems to have an iPhone, seems to be driving a car, and in the grand scheme of human history, that makes her in the 99.9999th percentile of the most privileged human beings to ever have existed. You're not living in apartheid South Africa, babe. You're not living in Jim Crow America. You're living in a country that isn't perfect, but where you have the freedom to be whatever you want to be and to make of your life what you make of it. It's strange to me that folks like this would rather twist themselves into pretzels and find ways that other people are causing the problems in their life. But maybe it's just a grift. I don't know. I mean, they did literally end this video calling for them to be sent money, black and brown people, just for their skin pigment or whatever. Make it make sense. Up next, if you're watching this and you're a cis white woman, so just a white woman, you are the scariest population.
Cis white women are the scariest population group out of any group of people ever. It's period. Especially the small, cute ones. Just to be honest. Y'all cry. People die. Right?
Oh?
I've never been abused more than by a cute, small, cis white woman. You know? Maybe my dad, but like for people who are not in my life my entire life, yeah, it's the cute little cis white woman who make sure every time to tell me they'll never believe you. Just like that. With glee. When I lived in Compton, it wasn't cis white dudes coming in, it was cis white women. They'd feel threatened and people would die. So.
Okay. Now that I've taken a moment to gather my thoughts, it is insane to see the supposedly woke people who claim to be all about dignity and equality for all people of all identities just casually insulting and stereotyping and demeaning entire demographic groups of people. I'm really honestly sorry if you were abused by someone, by anyone, and that is of course terrible. But it's unfair and objectively bigoted to blame the actions of a few individuals on an entire demographic group of people. Imagine if somebody was mugged by a black person once and then started saying that black men are the scariest population. We would all be like, WTF, that's racist and bigoted. It's not somehow different because you have a nose ring and you're talking about white women, babe. You just sound like the KKK, but woke. It's also just funny to me because imagine being one of these radical trans activists and wanting to push your agenda and gain acceptance for your community or whatever their goals may be, yet actively dismissing, disdaining, or throwing shade at a huge portion of the country. I mean, white cis women, so just white women who are not transgender, that's literally a huge portion of this country and of voters in this country, and you're just casually being bigoted and hating them? Not the best strategy. People like this, they just need to delete their accounts and stop posting. You're doing a lot of harm, and I can't really see any good. Up next, try to keep up with this TikTok. It's gonna be tough. Warning you now. It's going to be difficult to follow.
I love when I accidentally start queer discourse. Yesterday I posted a video where I talked about how frustrating it is when people misgender me as someone who presents femme the majority of the time. A lot of you pointed out how not everyone who presents femme uses she, her, or in my case, she, they pronouns, and some people who use he, him pronouns present femme regularly too. Which is a great point, and it brings us to this idea of gender identity versus gender presentation. These two camps are often but not always correlated, which is why it's dangerous to make assumptions. For example, I was assigned male at birth, and most people who are assigned male at birth go on to identify as boys and men, but I realized I could not be further from that. I identify as a trans feminine person, and therefore my gender presentation is femme. Which is why I was so frustrated in that video, because people will see that I have a couple of features typical of someone who is assigned male at birth, and then assume that they should use he, him pronouns for me. Even if it's a subconscious assumption, the action can still be quite painful. Now, in spite of a couple of characteristically male features, my gender presentation is almost always femme in the way I dress, in the way I speak, in the length of my hair, etc., which matches with my gender identity of a trans feminine person, hence the correlation I was talking about earlier. But as many of you pointed out, not everyone's gender identity and gender presentation correlates like that. Some people's only correlates a little bit, or some people's only correlates on certain days, or sometimes, or some people's only correlate never. All of this is to say that making assumptions about someone else's gender identity can be really harmful and hurtful to that person. So how the are you supposed to know what to call people if you don't know their pronouns? Well, for a long time, a lot of folks, myself included, would say you should assume they pronouns if you're unsure. And I still understand a lot of the logic behind this. However, you might meet a woman, for example, who has a lot of characteristically male features like myself. And if you assume they pronouns for her, it might be really hurtful because she's a woman. She doesn't want to be seen as non-binary. So if you're really unsure, use that person's name, which is probably going to be the most affirming thing for them to hear anyway, until you get a chance to ask them, or better yet, ask a friend of theirs what pronouns they use. Because if you take the burden off of that individual to either have to explain to you their gender identity, or worse, have to correct you after you make the wrong assumption, and instead do the work on your own to figure out what best validates them, it's going to make them so happy.
Alright. What the fuck? What would make me happy is if y'all could start to make even a little bit of sense. Don't misgender me, but also don't assume my gender, but also please assume my gender and get my pronouns correctly, because look at how I express myself, but also how I express myself has nothing to do with my pronouns. Babe, you're incoherent. Everything you say is internally contradictory. Sort your shit out. Get your message together and come back to us once you have it figured out. And then we can discuss it and see if, we agree, we disagree, we can have that conversation. But until you sort your own message out, you really have no business popping off on TikTok. There's so much wrong with this video. I really can't react to all of it, but just a couple gems in here. It's now not even woke enough to call someone not they, them, if you don't know their gender, and just refer in the neutral. That's offensive. That's problematic now. And while they always told us we were supposed to ask people what their pronouns are, now you shouldn't ask people what their pronouns are. You should go find their friend and ask them and then come back. Like, you don't get to give homework assignments for social interactions. You're just making yourself seem difficult and unreasonable and deeply confused. And it's not other people's job to constantly affirm your sense of self or to make you happy. That has to come from in here, from inside. And if it doesn't, you end up with woke word salad like this. Up next, keeping with today's theme, I guess, we have more confused messaging about gender.
I want to try to define my gender, but it's really hard in 60 seconds, so I'm going to talk really fast. I'm gender fluid, and here's how that works for me. Most of the time, I'm one of two, modes or mindsets. Most of the time, I am this weird amalgamation of, genders and vibes and essence and just being that I literally cannot define. I don't know. You're just going to have to take my word for it. It's like the universe. It's ever-flowing. There's, sparkles, and it's just it changes over time and it moves through each other, and it's never one thing. And then other majority of the time I'm just a void. There's nothing there. There's just an absence, and I don't know how else to describe it. So either everything or nothing. Those are the two that I'm usually in. But then every once in a while, and I don't know where it comes from, but I'll just be thrust back into a binary. I'll just be sitting there chilling, enjoying my life, and then all of a sudden I'm a man? Who asked? Or a woman? Since when?
So, I feel sad for this deeply confused individual, and please do not make fun of this person or any of the people I feature in my videos or make fun of their looks. Please don't do that. But her message is really harmful, and it needs to stop. Our fight for dignity and acceptance for the LGBT community over the decades was always rooted in the notion that you're born this way. Not literally, but in the sense that these are immutable characteristics about us that we cannot change and are not within our control, so it's not fair to judge us for them or to discriminate against us and treat us differently for them. Now we have woke people like this clinging on to the alphabet label, claiming that their identity changes every 5 seconds and they can't even keep up. That's not how our community works, my dude. It's not how it works. Don't conflate your deep confusion with what personality you want to have, or what vibes you feel, or what cosmic connection to the universe you're experiencing, or the void inside that you should probably be discussing with a therapist, not with TikTok. Don't conflate that with who we are and what we can't change about ourselves. What you really seem to mean in this video is that you're young and still confused and figuring out what your personality is and who you want to be as a person. That's fine. That's normal. But it doesn't actually have anything to do with sex, gender, or LGBT, and you're giving us all a bad name and making us all look crazy. All right, guys, that's it for this segment. I can't handle any more of these alphabet people's TikToks in one sitting without incurring permanent brain damage. If you got a kick out of this or enjoyed the podcast so far, please do consider subscribing. We recently crossed 100,000 subscribers, and we're already at almost 105K. So this community is growing so fast on YouTube. But wherever you are, if you're with us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thanks and welcome to you as well. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet, and do like and comment with your thoughts. And I'll see you all in the next video. But if you're not sick of me yet, you can go here or here to check out some other episodes of Damage Control that you might just enjoy.